What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth sales yet again. And the saga honestly just keeps getting interesting. We've talked a little bit about gaming sales in general, and look, this is probably why you don't overstress yourself with this stuff, right? Now, I've classically said, hey, ultimately, we're the consumers. We have opinions, right? And boy, do we share them. But ultimately, or when it comes down to it, you either buy or not buy a game. And I think many people that play games, many people that aren't always online, like say somebody like me or maybe other people, right? They either get the game, they don't get the game, and they move on with their lives. They don't really care what happens to the company. They don't, things like that don't really breach their mind. And in some ways, that's not a bad thing at all, right? So, we've kind of talked through this a little, but it's definitely been a controversy of, is this game doing well? And if it's not, what's the reason? Is it because of the PlayStation thing? Is it just, and we've looked at the numbers in past videos, Final Fantasy has just been going down since Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the games have just kept getting lower in terms of sales. So it's not necessarily new, but it could very well be an actual problem, right? So, we've talked about, okay, well, is that 2 million? Is that 3 million? Is that good? Is that bad? Well, today there was the, overall kind of report for how the year's doing, right? Which games are kind of leading. And it's just a very nice chart. Of course, it doesn't tell you sales, the actual numbers, because that would be far too easy and we would get our answers, right? So you have at number 1, Helldivers 2, number 2, COD, number 3, Dragon's Dogma 2, and number 4, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, this goes through April 6th. It's possible things have shifted, but to be honest with you, MLB The Show is maybe the only one, considering I think that was new back in April. That's the only one that could maybe mix things up, right? I highly doubt Tekken 8 jumps over Final Fantasy. Suicide Squad, I would actually be, my jaw would hit the floor if Suicide Squad, jumped over it. But really, any of the other ones, Madden, Persona, Hogwarts Legacy, it's cool to still see that, I think, chugging along rather well. And you just keep going down the list. It's actually a little shocking that Infinite Wealth is all the way at 18. I think that game is really, really good, but that's the list, okay? Now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at number 4 is pretty good. Honestly, okay, again, you don't know the actual sales numbers, but what's interesting about this, again, through April 6th, physical and full game digital. So it's both physical and digital. However, this is the US, and I do think a lot of people are kind of forgetting that, which, we're going to get back to. It's from Nintendo, it's from PlayStation, it's from Steam, it's from Xbox. One thing you could probably say, but I would like to throw it out there anyway, just to see what you guys think. You look at the games, and Helldivers 2 has been a phenomenon. That is one, that came out of left field generally, and it did really amazing. Now, what is Helldivers 2 on, though? It's on PlayStation, it's on PC. COD, well, that's everywhere. Dragon's Dogma, that's everywhere. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you're going down the list, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the first one that is just on one platform. Now, you can look at that in multiple ways, right? I actually have seen on this post on Twitter, people in the comments saying, or, other tweets or whatever you want to call it, people saying, hey, if you put this thing on PC, maybe it's higher than number 4, right? Maybe all of a sudden it's number 3 or number 2. I just don't think anything's catching Helldivers, at least for now. Probably in the fall, maybe at least. Actually, I don't know that for sure. Maybe even Elden Ring's DLC, though. I've talked about that quite a bit. It's DLC, yes, but you might see sales of Elden Ring skyrocket in May, June, July. So that actually might kind of somewhat come out of left field and do really well. But, and the question is, well, does it? Or would it? Would putting Final Fantasy on PC move this up in the rankings? And again, I don't know, you look at it and being number 4 and going above it and saying, hey, that's a pretty good list. So is Final Fantasy really doing all that bad? I will say this, I have said in the past that I don't think it's actually doing all that bad. And it kind of goes even back to the Final Fantasy 16 thing. Is it doing unbelievably well? Is it saving the company? Is it pulling Square Enix from the ashes? No. And I think that they kind of have relied on some of their big hitters to fix their mistakes. And we talked about this in yesterday's video, right? They've made mistakes. Games like Forspoken, there's no way that did well. There's no way. Games like Foam Stars that just came out, that game died within the day it came out. It came out and then died that day. So it's there's no way that made money, right? And so, do you put all of those failures on just a couple games. You put it on Kingdom Hearts' back. You put it on Final Fantasy's back. I feel like so far they kind of have. And has that worked? No. You know what I mean? So things do have to change. And as we've talked about and as we've seen from Square Enix even publicly, they are changing. Something's going to change. And if that's doing the PlayStation exclusivity thing or stopping that, then maybe that happens, you know, over the next couple of years. But I don't know. It is confusing. And one final thing I do want to throw out, because a lot of people are going to Tekken, right? So Tekken 8 is number 6 on this list, and Tekken 8 is really one of the only one, like, they've actually all been pretty secretive with their numbers. I don't think Helldivers has really talked about the actual units sold, at least recently. Dragon's Dogma, I don't really think has mentioned it. Final Fantasy has definitely not mentioned it, otherwise I would have absolutely seen it. But Tekken 8, I think a month or two ago, put out, like, the official thing. They said it sold 2 million. Now, this is where people, I think, are getting a little confused, though. I don't know how much you can go off that, right? Because number one, 2 million units. Has it gotten closer to 3 by now? Probably. So you could say, okay, well, that means Rebirth is at least higher than that. The issue is this is just the US. And when Tekken put out that post, it did say worldwide, sold worldwide, 2 million units. So then you have to kind of just assume or figure out the breakdown. How many in the US got Tekken 8? Was that the majority? And then you have to look at Rebirth and say, okay, well, Rebirth in the US is doing better than Tekken 8, but what does that mean? As I've said, and this is really what the numbers I think kind of show, I mean, I would not be shocked if Rebirth worldwide has hit 3+ million, but somewhere in the 3 range. Like, I don't think it hit 4. I definitely don't think it hit 5 or 6 or anything like that. I think it's probably sitting somewhere between 3 million and 4 million, which to me, I would not consider that like a train wreck like some people online would. And again, like I said in the beginning, there's also another part of me that wants to just not care and thinks that not caring is maybe the best outcome here, right? But, you know, it is newsworthy. It is something that's interesting to talk about. And at the end of the day, as I've said numerous times, even for me, you know, somebody who makes these videos, I want the game to do as well as it needs to. You know, if they needed it to sell 4 million, sell 4 million. Just give me the third part and then, you know, keep going or change how Final Fantasy games are or whatever. I do like Final Fantasy. I do like Kingdom Hearts and other Square Enix games. Just don't demolish the company, right? Like that's at its most simple form. That's what I want from it. If they wanted to sell 2 million, sell 2 million. I could care less if it sells 10. I could care less if it sells 7.5. Just sell what it needs to. And it's tough because they don't say it. Then there's all these speculations of like, oh, it's doing so bad. They don't say it. Even when we get something like this, which is a little helpful or a little handy, it doesn't say the units, so you're just looking at a chart ranking, right, which is a little bit hard to, I guess, decipher. It's tough. You know, you can't really come to that many just flat-out conclusions because this is what we're given. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.